Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit south node, square opposition, or inconjunct one's natal Neptune. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve the south node, it could be about what you're going away from, the past, what you're leaving behind. Could even be about what you may be naturally proficient in at this time. Could be overdeveloped and redundant qualities. Now, when you have the transit south node basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Neptune. Well, first I'm going to elaborate on that. When I say basically adverse aspect, of course, squares and oppositions in astrology, those aspects are adverse and negative. Now, the inconjunct aspect, the inconjunct can be, and not can be, it is a neutral aspect, but it can also, neutral aspects can have good and bad qualities in them. And coupled with the fact that an inconjunct can often require an adjustment or a transition. So collectively, basically, see this as an adverse transit. Now, again, when you have transit south node basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Neptune, well, it may manifest in what you're going away from, your past. It could be what you may be naturally adept or proficient in at the time, and overdeveloped and redundant qualities. Those things might conflict with your dreams at this time. The thing about it is, if you have the transit south node, say if it's in Capricorn, that could be very premeditative, exceptionally to involve premeditative planning, calculating, and if you're trying to pursue some dream and something that you may have needed to take action on sooner than later, that could be to your detriment, of course. And the thing about this is too. When you have this transit, the south node is what you're going, trying to get away from. On the positive end, the fact that if you have the transit south node, and it basically adverse aspects in natal Neptune, it can manifest in difficulty in getting away from your dreams and your fantasies, but at the same time, it might also indicate that you might be dreaming and fantasizing too much because those things may be harder to extricate yourself from and get away from at the time of this transit, and not actually taking action in matters connected with those things. And the thing is, keep in mind, when you have this transit of the south node, if it's going, let's say if it's making an opposition to your natal Neptune, of course, then the transit north node would be conjunct the natal Neptune, and it could be about where your future can lie, and it could be where issues that may have to be addressed and confronted may be connected with Neptune, which could be, of course, the dreams, the fantasies, the ideals, and things you may be inspired by at the time of this transit. Now, again, Neptune is connected with one's ideals. The thing is, it could be where someone is coming out of the past that was prominent in your past life, say in early education, or even your early childhood, maybe in a neighborhood that you lived in when you were very young. These things might not be ideal for you, dealing with these people at this point in time, and you may not have an overabundance of inspiration to do those things that you may feel at this time you're naturally adept in. If the transit south node, say, is in Scorpio, it could be being sleuthing and doing some investigation, researching deeply, as an example. And the thing is, sadly, Neptune is connected with deception and duplicity. So those things might be harder to avoid at this time, more so than usual. You have to be careful of a transit like this, and dealing, people that are frauds. Could be somebody impersonating somebody else, people promising more than they can deliver. It might be a situation that when you have this transit, again, Neptune being connected with deception, duplicity, it also could be gullibility. So just make sure when you have when you have a transit, it's transit, it's imperative just to make sure you're looking at all, the dots. If there's some, contract or something, say if this is, you have natal Neptune in the 7th house, it could be over a contract issue, or even if natal Neptune is in the 3rd house, anything with writing, be exceptionally prudent in terms of looking at the fine print in it. Now, another thing too is as far as what's anatomically connected with Neptune. Now, the feet and the toes are associated with Neptune, and it's also associated with the lymphatic and immune system. So if you're having any difficulties with these things, if you've had these issues prior to the transit, it might be a time where it's harder to avoid these issues at this time. Because again, the South Node is about what we're going away from. It might be harder to get away from those issues. Again, you have the transit South Node, if it's opposing your natal Neptune, then the transit of the North Node will be conjoining Neptune. And it will be something where those could be physical related matters that may have to be addressed and confronted at this time. I would say especially if the natal Neptune is in the 1st or 6th house, because the 1st house corresponds with the physical body. 6th house is connected with health related issues. Now, and it could be too that someone from your past may be challenging you trying to deal with those issues at this point in time. Another thing too is that when you have this transit as well, Neptune is about escapism as well. So it's interesting when you have this transit, you might be trying to get away from one thing and maybe another thing at the same time. It might be harder to do both and lighten the candles on both ends as far as figuratively speaking goes. Or it could be maybe it's difficult getting away from escapist tactics, or just trying to isolate yourself at this point in time, and trying to leave that energy in the past can be difficult. It might conflict with which things you want to do that you're naturally adept in, what you're naturally proficient in at this time. If the South Node, say is in Libra, and it's in your 11th house, say, it could be a situation where where you feel you're naturally good at the time of this transit, naturally adept or proficient, and could be ingratiating yourself with groups, expressing intellectual sociability in groups, clubs, or organizations. But then you have the conflict with Neptune being about isolation and trying to escape. Now, Neptune is also connected with confusion as well. So if you're dealing with some confusing issue at this time that you're trying to figure out, and it's confounding, and you're not able to get reach some kind of decision or understand something, those things, trying to deal with that might be challenging. Situations or activities with people from your past at this time. It can be again, the South Node is connected with overdeveloped and redundant qualities. And on the positive end, maybe this could manifest in trying to deal with some situation that would be confusing, but maybe it wouldn't be, you wouldn't be at this time maybe expressing those overdeveloped qualities quite as much at this time, because that's what the South Node can be about. The transit South Node is an Aquarius. That could be overly rebellious, idiosyncratic, non-conforming behavior, as an example. Now, another thing too, another way this transit may manifest, it could be that someone from the past may adversely affect you trying to attain your dreams at this time. Now, let's say if the transit South Node is in Aquarius in the 3rd house, as an example. It could be some kind of eccentric, unpredictable. It could be non-conforming, which is Aquarius. It could be a neighbor, which is associated with the 3rd house, or perhaps somebody you knew from your early education, or somebody that you knew in some kind of when you were making short journeys. Now, another thing too is that it may be harder to get away from matters of sacrifice at the time of this transit. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now let's say, for example, if you have the you know, transit so natal Neptune and Scorpio in the second house, um, it could be, you know, doing something, you know, as far as, you know, sacrificing yourself, you know, with a lot of you know, Scorpio could be done with a lot of passion as far as your possessions go at this time. Um, it can be, you know, something where, or maybe you're helping somebody out, you know, in terms of your own, you know, just your possessions in general, monetary situation. And again, if the Neptune is in Scorpio, could be doing so with much, you know, again, with much passion, emotional intensity. It can be a time too, you know, if you had something, you know, that could be affecting you to your detriment, which is connected with the South Node, may challenge. It could be your sleep. Relaxing Neptune is associated with sleep and relaxation. If let's say if the transit South Node is in, it could be transit South Node in Leo in the ninth house as an example. It could be very extravagant, which is Leo. It could be publishing, advertising you may be doing. Maybe it's starting to, you know, burn a hole in your pocket, figuratively speaking. Now, at the same time, what you feel comfortable doing, just a South Node. The South Node could be connected with the comfort zone. That may conflict with Neptune-related activities. Now, let's say, for example, if the transit South Node is in the zodiac sign Cancer in the 12th house, it could be nurturing and caring, which is Cancer, the less fortunate, which can include the oppressed, the homeless, the impoverished, and the hungry, which is associated with the 12th house. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.